Hi, Dan Whitaker here. Wanted to share with you some stories from the trenches. Something that just happened recently with a client that I thought would be beneficial because it's been coming up with a couple of clients. So we've had a couple of clients recently sell their California real estate and want to move out of the state of California to another state. This has been in the case of rental property. This has been in the case of principal residence. But I wanted to give you some rules and some things that you can think about if this is what you're going through. A lot of people are moving out of California or investing out of California now. So there's a couple of things. If you're selling your principal residence, if you're single, you can always exclude up to a $250,000 gain, and if you're married, you can exclude up to a $500,000 gain. So that's that's under Code Section 121 to be technical. The other tax code section that a lot of people want to try to use is 1031, or a tax deferred exchange. So one of the rules with the tax deferred exchange is you can only use it when you have investment property. And your principal residence, your primary residence, is not investment property, it's your primary residence. So you tend to run into some problems there, right? So how can we defer the gain? In this specific case with a client, they had two pieces of California real estate. One was their principal residence, one was a secondary residence. They had gains of over $1 million on each one. And we started strategizing on how do we defer the gain, or how do we not pay tax. As we got into the research a little bit further, what I want to share with you is there's two things. On the principal residence, the first $500,000 was excludable under Section 121, so that means the other half, the second $500,000, would be taxable. And then they said, well, can't we do a 1031 exchange? And then the rules come into play. You can do a 1031 exchange if it's investment property. So then how do we make a principal residence investment property? So the IRS doesn't have clear guidelines on this, but there's a couple of things that we can look at that point to this and what you would want to do in that case. So the first one is you want to make it rental property, and you want to make it rental property for at least 2 years. And when it's rental property, you can't live in it. So we can't simply declare, hey, this is going to be rental property. You actually have to rent it. You can't live in it while it's rented out. And then along with that lines, while the IRS is not specific about this, is we would want to see that it is at least rentable over 2 tax years. That will create a situation that is less ambiguous from the IRS's perspective, and you can demonstrate that it was really rental property. So in this case, they could defer the tax on the principal residence, primary residence, through using Section 121, which is the $500,000 exclusion that everybody gets if they're married, or $250,000 if you're single, and then secondly, turning it into rental property for 2 years. So that's the first situation. The second situation is, what are we going to do on the secondary residence or their vacation home that has truly been a vacation home? It's been a vacation home in this case for more than 10 years. It hasn't been rented. It's been used by family. They've let church groups use it here and there, but other than that, it hasn't been rented or anything. So the situation in this case is the IRS is less ambiguous about this. They actually have specific second home or vacation home rules. And I have that, and it's down below in the article that you can read here. It does get more technical, but essentially you have to have owned it for 24 months before you exchange it, before the tax deferred exchange. And then in each of the 12 months before, the taxpayer has to rent it for more than 14 days, and they can't use it for more than 14 days or 10% of the rental period during those 12 months. So there is there are specific rules there that you need to be very careful to follow. And then when you buy the new property, so when you sell your vacation home or your second residence, you buy the new property and you defer that gain, right? So we're not paying tax, we're deferring that gain into the second piece, the new piece. The same rules apply. It needs to remain a rental for 2 years. And at that point, there's guidelines you can follow and you can defer the gain. Something that we looked at in the case of leaving California is this tax deferred gain under Code Section 1031 is a deferral mechanism. So at some point you're going to pay the tax. That's how the 1031 works. California allows 1031, but they now have a clawback starting in 2014. California has a clawback that if you take your California property and you sell it and you don't pay tax under 1031 and you invest outside of California, you then have to track that and file informational returns with California on an annual basis until the point at which you sell that property or the owners pass away and there's a step up. So not only California, Massachusetts, Montana, and Oregon have also implemented the same clawback rule. It's detailed down below in the article that we have written here. But you can see if you're leaving California, there are some additional rules that you need to follow through that get kind of, I guess, not necessarily sticky, but you need to make sure that those informational returns are still filed on an annual basis. So anyway, you can see that in this situation, there was a lot that we could help our client with. There are things we can do to defer gain, and things that we can do to not pay tax on the principal residence side for the first $500,000. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and we can help you out as your questions arise. Thanks a lot.